Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bookmarked Chapter 26. So, I'm actually really excited for today's chapter because I think it's something we can all relate to. So, today we're going to be talking about reading slumps, how to avoid them, what happens when you're in them, what you should do to get out of them, our own experience with them, everything reading slumps. But first of all, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Hailey. You are on my channel, Hailey in Bookland.
I'm Hannah. My channel is A Clockwork Reader.
And I'm Zoe. My channel is ReadbyZoe.
So, first of all, we should talk about what we're currently reading. So, I am currently reading, and I'm almost finished with Prince Charming by Rachel Hawkins, which has been a delightful surprise. I had this book, it was previously titled Royals and had a terrible cover, but then they rebranded it. So, I was like, it's super cute now. So, now I want to pick it up, and it is actually very, very enjoyable. I'm quite happy with it.
I am not currently reading anything, really, because I'm in a reading slump. Also, not reading anything because of what Zoe's currently also doing.
Yeah, so I'm not reading anything either because reading slump because I just finished doing the Owls readathon and I read like 11 books for that. And also we started watching Game of Thrones yesterday because Hannah's been yelling at us to watch Game of Thrones for like a year, and I'm finally listening, so we've been watching it together. And yeah, not reading anything, so it's very applicable to today's episode. So we got some insider knowledge today.
Amazing. But if you guys wanted to join us in reading our, what month is it? May. I almost said April. Our May book of the month, we are currently reading Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare for our book club. This is going to be a reread for all of us, but it's going to be like the first time because I am me. So it's going to be great. We're going to have our live show at the end of the month on Hannah's channel. Not sure exactly when, just because we're going to be at BookCon. So
it'll probably be at the beginning of
later.
June. I think that's what we decided.
Yes. Okay. Beginning of June. So we'll figure it out. But we asked you guys on Twitter about your experiences with reading slumps because everyone's experience is different and like what gets you into it and all that can vary a lot. So we did some polls. We really like to do those. So if you wanted to follow us on Twitter, our Twitter is down below. It's at Bookmarked Club. But Hannah, did you want to go through the polls?
Sure. Okay. So the very first poll that we had was just asking, have you ever been in a reading slump? And 98% of people said yes. And 2% of people said no.
I want to know those 2% of people.
Yeah, out of 755 votes. So like, I want to know who you are, those 2%.
Honestly.
Like how do you not be in a reading slump?
Honestly.
Magicians.
Yeah. And then the next question was, how often do you find yourself in a reading slump? 31% of people said at least once a year, 54% said once every few months, 11% said at least once a month, and 4% said a few times a month. What would you guys say your answers are?
I think I did like once a month-ish, or like I don't know. It depends on how I'm, like, now that I'm not in school, it's less often, but definitely in the past, it's been like once a month.
Yeah, I feel like every few months for me, but once again, it depends. And I'm sure for many of the people, it depends. But like, obviously, putting that as a poll answer, everyone would say it depends. But it definitely does depend. And like you said, being out of school makes all the difference. But what I'm reading, what my mood is, all of that kind of has an effect on that. But I would say once every few months, probably.
For me, it's also once every few months for sure. Sometimes it's only a couple times a year, but it's usually, it depends on everything.
Yeah.
And then how long do your reading slumps typically last? 8% of people said a couple of days, 33% said a week, 53% said a month, and then 6% said a year or longer.
I said every like a couple of days, so that's why it's like it might be like once a month, but I just won't read for like a couple of days while I'm like catching up on things or I'm not feeling well. I won't read, so that's why I think of a reading slump as. What about you guys? I know you in the past you guys have had longer ones.
Yeah, I don't really think of it as like a couple of days, like because that happens to me like every week.
Yeah.
Like I just don't feel like reading for a couple days. That's not like, for me, that's not really a reading slump because I know that I'll want to in a couple days. For me, a reading slump usually lasts like a month or so, maybe. It depends. Like sometimes it's just because there are circumstances in my life that are preventing me from like focusing on reading. Sometimes it's just because I've read too much recently and I need some other form of like entertainment. And yeah, so it kind of depends on the type, like what the circumstances are. But usually I feel like it'll last like maybe a month where I don't really feel like fully committing to reading. And then I get over it.
Yeah, I would say mine's usually about a month as well, a month or longer. Like every now and again, I will have like a week or so where I'm really not feeling like reading. I'm just feeling sluggish. Like I had a couple of weeks where I wasn't feeling like reading recently, but a month or longer to me is when I'm like, okay, I'm definitely like really in a slump. So I actually accidentally answered a week on that poll though. So you the data.
Wait, was there? I didn't realize there was a week, because I think that's what it would be. Because usually I think it's on like because we're on BookTube, like a week where I don't read, that feels like so much longer.
For sure.
And so I wouldn't define like a couple of days as a slump, but it feels like I'm in a slump when I'm like wanting to read or So I blow it out of proportion. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't read for 3 days. I'm in a slump. Everything's going wrong. I'm not a reader. Oh no.
What? You blowing things out of proportion?
What? Being attacked like 6 minutes in.
The next question was, what do you attribute the cause of your reading slump to? 12% said a certain book, 36% said being busy, 45% said bad mood / mental health, and 7% said nothing good to read. And I fully agree with like bad mood / mental health. That's the thing that really like keeps me from reading or doing anything I want to do.
100%. I think that's usually it. I don't think I've had a different reading slump, because if I want to read something, it won't matter if I'm busy. I'll stay up so late into the night reading, but it's usually when I'm busy, my mental health is not so good, so then I don't read. So it all comes back to mental health.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the reasons, but I think the main reason for me is I just lose steam. Like I just put so much pressure on myself that I guess that does lead to like that damages my mental health. So it does kind of come around to that. But I think being busy and just not having the energy is a big thing for me that puts me into a slump. Like I want to read, but I don't want to do the physical action of reading. You know, like there's so many books that I'm excited about, but the idea of picking up a book feels like such a laborious activity, which is ridiculous. But I get like that sometimes because I put so much pressure on myself. And
what? Hailey putting pressure on herself?
Call me out.
I
admit it. Yeah, I'll put so much pressure on myself that it'll just be like, meh, I want to read, but I don't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The next one is, what do you think got you out of your reading slump? 33% said taking a break from books. 12% said forced reading through it. 49% said a certain book, and then the last one was 6%, which was other, and they just like replied with answers. Which I don't know if I can find those. I don't know why it's not showing up when I click on it.
Oh, here we go. There's so many answers here, really.
There was like 130 replies.
Yeah, a lot of people said rereading a book, which I think is great. BookTube, a lot of people said audiobooks, DNFing books. For me, DNFing is definitely something more recently that has made it really easy for me to get out of slumps, as well as learning my reading tastes and figuring out that I don't have to read something just because everyone else likes it and everyone else is saying it's good. It might just not be for me, and that's totally okay. But I think what traditionally would get me out of my reading slump is just kind of taking a break and like accepting the fact that I'm in a slump and I will get out of it eventually. Forced reading through it, I think just like
I could never.
Yeah, I would try. I would 1000%. I always tried, but it makes it take that much longer because I don't want to do it. So then it becomes a chore, and then it makes my reading slump longer, and it's just this whole vicious cycle of madness.
It started to feel like required reading. And that's usually when I was in school, that's usually what would start a reading slump, is that I would have to focus so much on reading for school that just the idea of reading more for entertainment, I could not. So And also every time that I read for fun, I would feel guilty for not reading for school. So I could not read through it. I admire the people who just try to go for it and like, it's not gonna slow me down, this reading slump. But no, I always take breaks from things. What about you, Hannah?
Yeah, I definitely have to take a break from it and just step away. But the thing that helps me the most, I think, with getting out of a reading slump is it has to be like after I've taken a bit of a break, because like sometimes it's just like you've read a bunch, like you don't feel like reading more right now, you need to do something else. And once I've done that, if I still don't feel like reading, then I know I'm like really in a slump. And the only thing that really helps me is just rereading a favorite book, because it reminds me like how much I like to read, and it just like gets me in the momentum of reading again. So that's what I usually do to get out.
I usually pick up contemporaries too, or a
Yeah.
book that so many people like you guys have told me to read, and then I can like live text you with my reactions and stuff, and your excitement gets me excited. So I think all three of those options, reading something that you know you can read quickly, such as a favorite book or like a contemporary or something, or just try to find a book that you can read with someone else.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there more questions?
The very last one was just like having people reply. There was a certain book that got them in or out of a reading slump. So we can go through some of those.
Yeah, I just thought that one was very interesting. I was curious
Yeah.
what people would say. What do you guys think, like, if you had to pick one book that got you into a reading slump, or if you even have one that got you into a reading slump and one that got you out of a reading slump? For me, I think the one that got me out of it was The Geography of You and Me by Jennifer E. Smith, which isn't even a book that I loved or anything, but it was just like a quick, fun contemporary. So I found it really, really easy to read. So that one definitely got me out of it. I don't think I really have. I guess the Throne of Glass books have put me in reading slumps before just because they
Oh,
take
same.
so long and they're really draining. Like fantasy books, I find are the ones that will put me into a slump.
Shadow and Bone got me into a slump. For sure. And I think it's definitely a lot of Truly Devious just recently that it got me like so excited to keep on reading. But I wasn't really in a slump at the time, but it just made me so much more
Yeah.
motivated to read. So something like a mystery. Yeah. Because you need to know what happens next.
Yeah, I feel like mysteries are helpful for me to get out of reading slumps. I can't think of a lot off the top of my head, but the most recent one I can think of that got me in a reading slump, it's like the opposite. It's like I read a book that I really, really like, and then nothing compares to it. So what's the point of reading? Which is Daisy Jones and the Six. Like,
I mean, you read it like 4 more times after that.
yes, but did I read anything else? No, because all I could read was that because it
Fan
was so
fiction?
good.
You read fan fiction?
Did I read fan fiction after that?
Yeah.
I did. I did read a little bit of fan fiction. Fan fiction helps me get out of a reading slump. That's another thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's definitely one that got me in a reading slump. But there are like other circumstances. I don't know. I don't know a book that got me in a reading slump. But one that got me out of a reading slump, I think The Vanishing Stair by Maureen Johnson. I think I read that while I was in kind of like a slump time, and it definitely helped me get out of it. And what else? I think it was The Astonishing Color of After, maybe? No, the An Ember in the Ashes series definitely helped me get out of a reading slump, because what I love is like when I can find a series that I can binge, like that really helps me get out of a slump. So anytime I like fall in love with a series and there are multiple books out, it's really, really helpful for me to get out of a slump.
Yeah.
Love everyone's comments in the chat recommending books. Oh, yeah. Harry
Amazing.
Potter definitely is one that gets
Yeah,
me out of
lots of
reading
people put
slumps.
Harry Potter. Yeah. I think anything like I guess we can cover that now, like ways to get out of reading slumps, because I think that's a main question that people have, because I feel like when you're in a reading slump and it can feel like writer's block or anything like that, anything creative that like takes energy, you're gonna burn out eventually if you go like back to back. There's people who are constantly like in reading slumps because of that. Like I'm one of those people because I'll like binge and then I'm like, I can't do it anymore, but I force myself through it. But I think that the genre of book that you choose to get you out of your reading slump is huge. And that's going to vary for everyone. For me, I can't pick up a fantasy if I'm in a reading slump. And I know that. Like, I haven't picked up a fantasy in a very long time because of that. I know I'm not ready for it, and it will put me straight back into a slump. So I go for contemporaries, short, quick, fun, cute, anything like that, all of those adjectives. And romance, I just recently got into adult romance, and that's so perfect for getting me out of a slump. Anything that I can read quickly and trick my brain into thinking that I'm accomplishing a lot really quickly, and then I'll be like, yeah, you're out of it.
Tricking yourself. You are accomplishing a lot very quickly.
Yeah, it still feels like tricking.
Reading. Just because it's not like a high fantasy book doesn't make it any less of a book.
Yeah,
so
that's very true.
Don't diminish yourself. You're still reading. And don't feel like, I think the biggest thing is that reading should be entertainment.
Exactly.
We're all choosing to read because we like to read. And I think so much of this is, well, a big part of this is the just comparing yourself with others, and especially the online book community. I see people's wrap-ups and they're like, I read, such as Hannah did once, I read 19 books in 1 month, and I was like, oh my God, I read
It
one
was
book.
18. It was 18 books.
You still read 19 books in a month. And I was like, oh my gosh, I only read like 2 books this month. I am a failure. And I think the whole thing is, don't push yourself. Just read when you want to read. And even booktubers who this is part of what they do is they read. People want to see you talk about things that you're enjoying. They don't want to see you all stressed out in your wrap up like, I read 17 books this month. I hate myself and I ripped out all my hair from frustration, but I read 17 books this month. So just take a deep breath. And if you're not in the mood to read, find something else that you're enjoying to do. And like, if you, such as like, I'm watching Game of Thrones right now, and it's making me so excited about like fantasy. So I'm like, maybe I should pick up a fantasy book next. So even if you're not actively reading, there can be things that like trigger you into wanting to read something, maybe even something that you don't usually pick up. So the whole thing from me is, calm down, everybody. This is entertainment. And even the word like reading slump, it just makes it so much sadder than it actually is. Like, I'm not inclined to read right now. No reading inclination, reading disinclination. There we go. That's my new word for reading slumps.
I mean, I think on that note of like comparison, you can compare me to myself if you want to, because there was a month where I read literally 18 books and I talked about it. This month I read 2 books. One of them was because I was forced to for Bookmark. I mean, I love the book, but like I had to read it.
Yeah.
And I read a graphic novel. Like that's all I read in April. And that happens a lot. But then there are other months where I just like, I read a ton because I really felt like reading. I have like watched like a million different TV shows in 1 month, and then I won't watch any TV in another month. Like, I think that, like you said, Zoe, like we want to talk about the things we're excited to talk about and like happy, being like happy talking about these things, because like we want to share the things we enjoy. So like, I'm not really going to talk about like the 2 books that I read. I mean, I don't even do wrap ups, but like, I wouldn't really like make a wrap up just to talk about these 2 books that I read. So like, you don't really see it as often. I guess it's kind of like, I guess this is like similar to social media, as in like, it's a highlight reel. When people talk about like how many books they read, they're talking about like the most amount of books they read like in 1 month, because that's like more clickbaity, and it's also just more entertaining or interesting or impressive than saying I only read 2 books this month. But like, I'm still gonna say it. I only read 2 books.
People who like read a lot in a month, that's really impressive, and they're obviously really excited about what they read. But just like keep it in mind that you don't have to keep up with everybody else. And even if you only read like 2 books in a month, that's still probably 2 more books than a lot of people read.
But the average person doesn't really read 2 books a month. Like, think about it that way. But anyway, so just don't compare yourself to other people. Like, don't let that put you in a slump, because
that's just life advice.
Yes.
Just don't compare yourself to other people. What's that quote? Comparison is the
I used to have it right up there, and I don't anymore. The thief of something.
It's like comparison is the like
Let me look at
or enemy of success or something. But it's so true. It's
you know which quote
true.
I'm talking about.
I do. Yeah, I
Okay.
totally know what quote you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
I had that when I was writing my book because I
Thief
was
of Joy.
constantly
Yes, the Thief of Joy.
Yeah. I knew but like you said, you can compare me to me because I had someone, I think it was this year, my February wrap up was like 3 books or 2 books or something.
Mhm.
And they were like, LOL, last year you read 20 books. It's like, yep, well, cool. Didn't do that this year. Like, you can't compare yourself to yourself because that's not fair either. And just don't compare yourself to other people as well. Good advice. I have a few tips written out here, though, that I wanted to kind of go over for you guys. So, a lot of people in the chat have some tips as well. So, you guys can keep those coming too. Those are very helpful. But a lot of people are talking about audiobooks. Audiobooks are so helpful for me in reading slumps personally. If you're not an audiobook person, they might not work for you. Yeah.
No.
But for me, they're super helpful. And joining a book club, like Hannah said, she read Scythe because she had to.
The Bookmarked book club, please join.
Yeah,
We need friends.
if you're in a reading slump, we're reading Clockwork Angel. But it's just that accountability. So even buddy reading, even joining, like having 2 people, like whatever, it doesn't have to be a huge book club. It doesn't have to be one where you're physically there. It can be an online book club where they
wink.
do a live show. Like, it can be anything. Just when you're reading with other people, it makes it a bit more of an activity and might reinvigorate that inspiration to read again. So it might help combat that burnout a little bit. Something else that I think might help is trying to read out of your comfort zone. Try something new. See if it's for you. It very well might not be. That's why you would like get it at the library or something. So then you're not spending the money on it. Also, libraries are just great in general. But contrastingly to that, you can also reread an old favorite. We talked about Harry Potter. That nostalgia might like reinvigorate some
They
dogs.
really love Harry
They
Potter.
are so excited.
They really love Harry Potter.
I love it so much. And like I said, I think that choosing what you're going to read is really important. So try for something that's short and easy and quick. Doesn't necessarily have to be a contemporary or anything. A short and quick fantasy is good too.
I have a tip. Maybe try to read like a certain amount of pages every single day, and maybe try to do it. This is a tip that a lot of people say. Try to read it before bed, like maybe 30 pages, if that is like a low average for what you usually read in a day. Maybe 50 pages if you tend to read more, but just maybe setting up structure will help. I think that's something that I'm going to start doing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can obviously read for longer if you want to, but it's also good for sleep.
For sure.
For mental health. There we go.
I mean, I definitely second that tip. I've been trying to do that because that's like something that I've been trying to do for the past week. I didn't do it last night because Zoe and I stayed up really late watching Game of Thrones, but it's fine. But I've been staying up, like I've been reading for 30 minutes before I go to bed, like reading a physical book so that I can stay off of my phone.
Like turn off your phone or put it on Do Not Disturb. Like not on your bedside table.
Well, mine's on my bedside table
Well,
because
don't do that.
Well, I have to. I can't be like, I have phone separation anxiety. Like, what if someone calls me and like it's an emergency? So I can't do that.
I'm more important than whoever is on the other side of the phone. I'm kidding.
But yeah, I've been trying to just read for 30 minutes every night before I go to sleep within like the same half an hour every night so that I sleep within the same hour. And it's like really, really helpful for your sleep. I say this, I haven't been like great at keeping up with it. So like, you know, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite, but I'm trying to like do it. And I think it definitely helps, like you said, with structure, to just like give you like a time to like get in your reading every single day, and having that be part of your routine, I think helps prevent you from getting into like a serious reading slump.
You can also combine the audiobook tip, and I'm someone who tends to need noise in the background when I'm falling asleep because my thoughts just tend to spiral when I'm falling asleep, but put on an audiobook like a half an hour before you go to bed, and that way you don't have to be physically reading. If like someone said when they are Jennifer Calderera says, I try to read before bed, but find that I end up reading the same line or paragraph over and over because I'm dozing off. And if you're reading an audiobook, that way you can doze off and it'll be fine. And then you can go back to where you were the next night. I think that combine all these tips. Read a book that's outside of your comfort zone while on an audiobook while you're falling asleep every night. There you go.
You can also
read it with a friend.
Yeah. You can combine that with my next tip, which I think that sometimes I will get bored. So things that I do to combat that are, one, I'll take another look at my TBR because it's massive. So I'll go through that and be like, I'm not really excited to read any of these books right now. And I'll soft unhaul them. And by that, I mean, I'll put them in a bin and then I'll come back to that bin later when I'm not in a slump and I'll be like, okay, do I actually want to read this now? And if not, then it goes. If I do, then it comes back. So, because I don't feel comfortable making that decision while I'm in a reading slump because I would just get rid of everything.
That's what I did.
I'd be like, bye, like none of this is happening right now. Another thing you can do is just rearrange your bookshelves maybe. And kind of like that is read in a new space than you usually would. So something that yes.
Watch my video where I tell you how to read in the bath.
Something that I want to get into doing is just going to a coffee shop with a book, and that's what I do. I'm just reading there, because then I know that's what I'm there to do. So hopefully that's what I will actually do instead of like scrolling on my phone or whatever.
Oh, I can't read with people around.
I don't care.
Not. Yeah, I don't care either.
Oh,
amazing.
You guys are way more secure. No, I get so distracted when I read. I need.
I get distracted too. Yeah.
Oh, I need total silence, so I couldn't.
I'm like people watching.
Yeah, maybe have.
Oh, see, when I have like total silence, I get like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that's why I always have like music. Yeah. But I have music or something to help me like focus. Like I need noise around me.
Okay.
Same. And my final tip here is something that Hannah mentioned, but you can also try reading fan fiction or short stories in general. You don't have to read a whole book to accomplish some reading. Like even read some articles, just like read something to kind of get you going. But I do have a whole video on this. I've done, I think 2 now, but there's plenty of videos there.
There's follow your own advice. Why are you always in a slump, Hailey? If you
True. Speaking of,
it's really hard to follow your own advice when you're in a slump.
Totally
you're like, oh no, this is a different slump than before. This won't. This is totally unique. None of these tips will work for me. But just try to. I think it's fun to like challenge yourself with different things.
For sure.
So definitely like try to read for a week, like 30 minutes before bed. That'd be such a cool challenge.
Yeah.
But I think something that puts me off of fan fiction and like stuff is that you can't put it on Goodreads.
Yeah, I feel that.
But like you can though.
Can you?
Yes.
You can put it on Goodreads?
But okay, there are some fan fictions that are popular enough that they're listed on Goodreads.
Oh my gosh.
So you can do that. I don't really do it, but I have in the past.
I love it.
Here's a secret, because I'm a liar.
I
have in the past, like you can just like mark a book you've read before and like mark it as a reread book on your Goodreads challenge. Because, okay, listen, I read fan fictions that are like 130,000 words. That's full on novel length. Like it's huge. And like people are going to think that this was before I even had BookTube. So like, it doesn't matter, but still, people are going to think like you didn't read anything, but it's like, I read like the equivalent of 5 books in that time where I wasn't reading anything. So you can just like mark off, like you reread Harry Potter or something on your Goodreads challenge. And it's like,
I care too much about the statistics to do that.
Oh, I don't care at all.
But it's for you.
It's for you.
No one, once again, there is no police for your Goodreads.
No, but no one cares. Year, man.
No one cares.
That's why you can make a reading journal like I have, and then you can put all.
I can still make a reading journal.
No, I know.
I still will.
No, I said you can do that.
Oh,
if you're like me and care about statistics so much, just like do the thing where I do, like just do like statistics and stuff. Yeah, boy.
I love it. Yeah, I totally support that though, because I get that. Like, if I can't mark something off on my Goodreads, I'm like, oh.
Oh, see, like I stopped caring though. Like I just stopped caring about my Goodreads challenge. Like I know I'm gonna read 50 books in the year pretty much, so like it doesn't matter to me that much. So like I don't even mark anything off for any fan fiction I read. I did that a while ago, but like, yeah, I get that because like you feel like you just read an entire book basically.
Yeah.
And then you can't like even count it towards your goal if that's like something that motivates you. So
Yeah.
just like put a book you reread on your Goodreads challenge and
Yep.
call it a day. Like,
Yeah.
I love
it's fine.
you in the chat who are agreeing with me. Thank you. It
Oh,
really strokes the old ego.
Oh my God.
I roll. I mean, it's not even the Goodreads challenge for me. It's the fact that I can't talk about it in videos. So then I'm like, well, what a waste.
You can talk about it in videos.
Why did I do that?
I mean, people keep asking me to make a fan fiction recommendation video. And so people apparently do want to hear about it. So you can talk about it.
It's just a me thing.
So if you have any questions, let us know in the chat about reading slumps and stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be about fan fiction.
We do have a question here from Twitter. It's from Amanda Moeller. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. I'm really sorry. But she asks, have you ever had a reading slump that lasted over a long period of time? So how long do you think your longest reading slump was?
Like 3 years.
Well, in middle school, I only read Twilight and other vampire-related books. So I feel like that is a sort of reading slump where you can only reread the same book like again and again and again. Like you don't want to go out of your comfort zone. But I don't really know. I feel like I've always been reading. I just didn't have a good read, so I didn't track how many books I read at a time. So I feel like a lot of college, I was in a reading slump because I didn't read that much. But I don't know how much of that was because of being an English major.
Yeah, definitely affects it. I never really got into slumps though when I was in university.
Oh, that's when my mental health was going downhill
know
too.
why.
So I feel like that was a big part of the situation.
That definitely impacts it. I think like I used to get into reading slumps constantly when I was a kid because I didn't really like reading. So I'd read one book and then I wouldn't read again for like a year. But I think that my longest reading slump in recent memory from since I've done BookTube was 2018 was like just a massive reading slump for me. It was just a terrible year for reading. I still read stuff, but like
you also wrote 2 books.
Yeah.
Yes.
Put that in perspective, lady.
Yes. So that was a big reason why, but it was because like I went into the year with the goal of writing a book and then I ended up writing 2, and that obviously took a lot of my mental capacity, and it's really hard for me to write or to read while I write rather. Like I don't want to be influenced, but I do also still want to keep on reading. Like I just find it's very hard for me because both of them, like both activities take so much brain power. So 2018 was definitely the year of the reading slump, and I wish that I started DNFing books then because it would have been beautiful and so helpful. But
So what do you categorize or what do you define a reading slump as? Is it wanting to read but not feeling up to reading, or is it not wanting to read, or like I mean,
think it's
before you
like,
had BookTube too, because again, BookTube does
yeah,
influence the factor you feel like you should be reading when you don't want to.
yeah.
So, not including BookTube, what would you define a reading slump as?
I think it's just the feeling that I get.
You
Like
feel like
I'm just like,
demotivated,
yeah,
unmotivated, demotivated,
yeah,
not a word.
that would be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like I don't have the energy or the will to read. Even though I know like it's a book that I really want to read and it's a concept that is very intriguing to me and something that like I should like the formula sounds like something I would love. I just don't feel like it. So I think it's definitely the motivation.
Feels more like a chore than
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
way to
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense.
And I think a lot of that came down to the fact that I was so focused on like there's so many books that so many people have read and I haven't gotten to them yet, so I need to get to all those backlisted books. But then there's also all of these new books that are coming out that sound really cool and I need to read those. And then there's the classics, and I just got into a thing where I was like I need to read everything, but I also cannot read everything at the same time. So it just became like this vicious cycle of wanting to read everything so quickly that I wasn't listening to my own reading speed. And then I was trying to push myself too far. So then it became a chore and it was like absolute madness. And I attribute that 1000% to BookTube. Like, but my own fault, not like BookTube. Like, well, BookTube did it to me, but not people. Just myself and the fact that like I was like, oh, to be like to keep talking about books that are relevant to like, you know, I just wanted to have new books to talk about all the time because I would get comments every now and again about the fact that I would talk about the same books because I was doing so many videos, but I also only read so many books. It's just As you can see, it's very stressful. You can see where the spiral went. But.
Do you often get in a reading slump after you've read a good book? Because there's some people in the Daniel Evans in the chat says that that's what happens to them. So does that often happen to you, or do you know what triggers it specifically?
Well, going back to the other question first, and then I'll relate it to this. No, you're fine. For me, my longest reading slump was I think it was 2 or 3 years, and it was while I was in high school. And for me, a reading slump is just I don't want to read. It's part of it is definitely the feeling unmotivated and just not having the will to pick up a book. But for me, it's just I just don't want to read a book. That's a reading slump. And for me, it lasted a couple years in high school. It was freshman year, I think, is when I read Clockwork Princess. And it was basically after that, it wasn't because of the book, but it was after that I just did not read until my senior year of high school. And that was just because we had to for AP Lit. And then I realized I like reading, and that's when I found BookTube. So then I kept reading. And so yeah, for me, it's just I just don't feel like reading books. That whole time I was reading fan fiction, but I just didn't feel like reading, finding new physical books to read. But then to answer the other question, what was it again?
You just answered it with the reading slump. Do you get it after reading books that you really enjoy?
Yeah. So for me, it usually happens after a book I enjoy because I read something I like, and then I'm well, nothing's as good as this, so what's the point? If I read a book I don't like,
it's the thief of joy. There you go.
If I read a book that I don't like, I just usually have a lot of feelings about it, so I'm just okay, I need to talk about this and rant about it. And then I want to read something else because I'm ugh, it left a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm I need to read something else. But when I read something that's just unbelievably good, sometimes it doesn't happen. With the Night Circus, that didn't happen. I wanted to read other stuff, but sometimes it just I read something so good and I'm just nothing is as good as this. So what's the point of trying to read something else? I'm going to watch this TV show or watch this movie because maybe that will have something that I like. But yeah, for me, that's usually how it starts.
Mine's usually a bad book. And I'm just oh, why do I even like reading? This is a mess. Why did I waste my time, hours of my life to this? So we have a question from Sami Korhonen. Before BookTube, did you consider times when you didn't read much or at all bad? Did you think of it as a book slump, or was it just something that happened sometime? And I definitely think that before BookTube, I feel like I'm trashing BookTube in this live show. It's not BookTube. It's my own fault and my own guilt that comes with making bookish content. Is that there's a lot of guilt that comes with not reading because people will come to you for new recommendations, and if you're like me and years behind all of the new releases, it sometimes feels like you need to constantly be reading new things to be on top of it and to be considered a reader, I guess. But definitely I think that I don't think I had the term for book slump or reading slump back before BookTube. So I just thought of it as, oh, I'm a teenager, we don't read books. So I didn't think of it as bad. I just thought of it as I have other things going on right now and I don't have time to read. There wasn't guilt.
I feel the opposite way.
Oh, okay.
I don't feel like BookTube made me get into reading slumps, and I don't really feel pressure to read a certain amount of books or read specific books when it comes to BookTube. I mean, I feel pressure to be reading all the time because this is what we do, but I don't really feel pressure to I have to read the new releases or I have to read these certain books, otherwise no one's going to care. But before, when I was in that reading slump for years, because I loved reading so much, I was always upset that I didn't want to read. So it was frustrating to me. And that was before I had a term for reading slump. But yeah, it bothered me. And anytime I would pick up a book and then I just didn't want to read anything afterwards, I was just why? Why can't you just want to keep reading? And all of that was before BookTube. And yeah, so I don't know. I feel the opposite way personally.
Interesting.
I feel I never thought of it as bad. I just thought of it as what would happen after I read a book. because I would constantly like, I would read one book and then I'd be like, nope, no more. Like, I can't do any more because I just read one. So I think it was just what would happen to me, but I didn't have a term for it either. Also getting to the other question, I don't get into slumps after good books. I get into slumps after like a streak of average books.
Yeah, that
Then
too.
I'm
The
like,
really bad
ugh.
ones, again, you can rant about. So I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I
Yes.
need to tell them
The
about
average
this.
ones, I'm like, that's a waste of
Mhm.
time because I can't, like, I can talk about it, but like, I don't really want to recommend it because like it was just okay. But I know that there's people out there that might love it. But that's why 2018 was a struggle because it was a streak of average books like the entire year.
When compared to the amazing books you were writing.
No. Hilarious.
Uh, so that's I like how we all reading slumps are different for every single person. It
sure.
depends like where like your reading tastes or what's going on. A big thing is what's going on in your own life and the energy you have at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I wish I liked audiobooks more. Maybe I would read more when
Yeah.
we're reading something.
2018 was also the year of audiobooks for that reason. It was just
Oh, there's this
great.
one from Tati, the tiny booktuber on Twitter. Has being in a reading slump ever ruined a book for you?
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
I don't think so either because I just won't read it.
Yeah.
I'm just not reading when I'm in a reading slump. And that's also why I save a lot of books to be in the perfect mood because don't roll your eyes at me, lady. Because when I'm not in a good mood, I'm like, no, like I'm scared that it will ruin the book for me. So I will
I
save
would
it
just like to
until
say there's like evidence now you just said it's never ruined the book for you. So
because
stop
I don't
putting
read
off
it.
books for your
Because I
perfect
don't
mood.
read it. But I really
Amazing.
think that if you read like a highly anticipated book, that most likely will help you out of a reading slump.
I
Again,
do.
You could read Six of Crows during this like reading
Yeah.
slump time, and I promise it'll be just as good as if you read it during a time where you've read a bunch of books you really like and you still feel like reading. So read it.
oh, so
I
we
do get
have
that, like,
mhm.
not even just the mood, but like I would save books for certain seasons because I was like, oh, this is a summer book, this is a fall book. Like, I can only read historical fiction in fall and winter. So then I would have so much on my
Really?
TBR. Yes.
Oh my gosh,
But
And
like,
that's
I'm
when
gonna
why
jump one
though?
here.
I know it was just, I don't know, but I would literally save them. And like anyone who watched any of my videos last year can attest to that. And I wouldn't get to them. And I'm like, well, now it's summer, so now I can't read them. Like,
Can't
and I
read the
am a mood
fantasy in
reader too. Yeah, I'm a
oh
mood reader too. So like
Well, you gotta
it
fully
didn't make
embrace the
sense.
mood reading
I
then.
know, and
Just
that's
like
why I got into a slump. It was a mess. But now it's better. That's why
no.
I'm
Oh
only
gosh.
reading contemporary right now. Literally all I can
Uh,
do.
so, don't see things. Moral of the story today.
Honestly, just allow yourself the joys in life immediately. Do not save them. Thank
So
you.
there's this one from Schmittens on Twitter as well. Again, if you have any questions, let us know in the chat right now. They say, I have certain authors, Stephen King, that I love, but know that afterwards I'll be in a slump. Do you guys ever have that issue with a particular author or genre? Definitely the Throne of Glass books or the
Yeah.
later ones. The first two I loved and I read them so quickly, but then the ones I think I only read the first three anyway. But the third one, was that Air of Fire?
mhm.
Yes.
That got me in a major reading slump. And also Cassandra Clare. Also, I get in a pretty big reading slump because her chapters are so long. Her chapters are like 50 pages long.
They are.
So, oh my goodness. So it takes me so long to get through. When they're shorter chapters, I feel like I'm going so much quicker, even though it's the same amount of pages. But I feel like I'm progressing, so I'm more excited to read. And also, they're just so chunky. And for some reason, I always get in a reading slump, and that's why I haven't read Queen of Air and Darkness yet.
Okay, I would just like to point out you get in a reading slump with Cassandra Clare books because you feel the need to go back and read all of them before you read the new one. That's why you get in a reading slump with Cassandra Clare books. It's not because the chapters are long.
That's my therapist here today.
You're welcome. But no, I also understand. I also get in reading slumps with Cassandra Clare books. But for me, it's because I've been reading those books since I was a little kid. And every time I read them, I'm just like so immersed into this like world again, and I'm back to where I was. So it's just like those are one of the only books that like it doesn't matter what I'm reading. If a Cassandra Clare book comes out, I will stop reading absolutely everything else and I'll read that book instantly. Like instantly. The only time that didn't happen was when I was in that reading slump while I was in high school and I read the first 100 pages of City of Heavenly Fire and then I didn't read the rest of the book until like 2 years later. But
I didn't reread the first 100 pages.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I get into reading slumps with Cassandra Clare books. So like if it's an author I really, really love, like I know it's going to happen with The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Like when that book comes out and I finally read that book, I'm not going to be able to read anything else afterwards because I'll just be thinking about that book. So that, yeah, it definitely happens for me too.
I think with also Cassandra Clare, the reason why I do like reread a lot of books before I start those is because everything is connected and I love to pick up the little Easter eggs. I'm like, I must read. I've read Lady Midnight.
Go on,
I didn't even love it that much, but I've read it 3 times now because I read it when it first came out and I read it before Lord of Shadows. And I read the first 2 books again before Queen of Air and Darkness came out. I went to the signing and never read it. But I think it's books that it's usually high fantasy. That's one of them too, is because I am concentrating so much on the book because I'm like, all of this will be important. I need to know every single tidbit. And then contemporaries are great to get you out of it because you already know the world because it's our world. You don't really need to care about anybody besides the 2 main characters, the main character and the love interest, because nobody else is important. And it's great. It's so quick. And you already know what the ending is probably going to be. Happily ever after.
Yeah, I think fantasy is definitely or what put me in slumps. Like not every single one, but
True, yes.
generally that's the genre. And Sarah J. Maas 1000% will almost always put me in a slump. We have a question from the chat here from Lace Ray. Do you think readathons put you in reading slumps or take you out of them? I'm really interested in this question because I feel like they
last week.
Yeah, they said that they thought we talked about it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I felt like it was a good topic to cover again.
Yeah.
I think that they do both for me a little bit, but generally more so they will put me in one.
Interesting. Again, like I said last week, I think that 24-hour readathons definitely put me in a reading slump because I'm reading for 24 hours straight and I need like rest and recuperation and all of that. But I think if it's a longer, I think with the Owls readathon, it was a month long and I did pretty much leave all the reading until the end of the month. So I think that got me into a little bit of a reading slump because I was pushing myself at the end. But week-long readathons, they definitely help like to get me reading more because it really integrates it into part of my schedule. So it's much more regular and I build like a routine around reading. But 24-hour readathons definitely I will not be reading. I mean, it's a short reading slump. It's usually for like the next 3 days. After that, I won't read anything.
I think that the week-long ones, they put me into a slump because every single one, I make myself read 7 books.
Well,
so like
that's your problem.
Yeah. That's definitely why.
We have deciphered why. Because that's basically like 7 24-hour readathons.
Yep.
For reading a book a day, and you still have to do like your normal life stuff. But do 24-hour readathons, do they get you more excited to read then? Or
No,
are they
because
also
I feel guilty every second that I'm not reading for that 24 hours. So they make me like resent reading because I'm like, I want to like, well, because I'm like, I want to do something else. Like I want to play Sims, but I can't because I should be reading. So then it just makes me not want to read. Yeah, but still.
Okay.
I feel like I have to spend every single second of my day reading. And any second that I'm not reading, I'm failing. I have
hard agree with that.
Unpack.
Can't relate.
Well, you do a lot of readathons. So like when you do readathons, what happens with your reading?
Well, every time I do a 24-hour readathon, it just motivates me to keep reading. So
you do it for yourself. You're not like
yes, because I do it when I feel like reading. So and then with like week-long readathons, the only one I've done is BookTubeathon or Reading Rush 2 years ago, I think. And that I think it put me, I don't know, I wouldn't say it put me in a reading slump. I just didn't want to read for a couple days, which I think is normal. And then I think I just kept reading after that anyway, because I don't know, anytime I read a lot, I feel like I just get the momentum to keep reading. So yeah, I just read when I feel like reading is the moral of my story.
You have have your life together and we resent you for it.
Hilarious.
You just you don't push yourself, and maybe that's why you're more content with your reading life.
I just don't force myself to do things I don't like.
Well, like,
No,
the
can't
funny
relate.
thing is, I'm not even doing it for other people. I'm doing it for
same.
me.
No, I
To,
know.
like,
Yeah.
compete with myself.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm
But
so
see,
competitive.
I'm so not competitive. I'm not even competitive with like me. Well, at least with this
Cannot
stuff, I'm not
relate.
competitive with me. With other stuff, yes,
Yeah.
by way too much. I think I put too much energy in being competitive with myself in other things to be competitive with myself in this. So that's why I don't care.
Wise words. Also, somebody said play Sims while listening to an audiobook, and that's
I do that.
honestly
I
what
Yeah.
hate
Hailey
it.
does. Yes.
Yeah. That's why I listened to so many audiobooks in 2018. I was
That's
making
me playing.
babies,
I play
marrying
Animal
people.
Crossing and I listen to audiobooks.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know what you should play? Stardew Valley.
Oh my god. I'm refusing to do it because I know I will fall down a hole and I will never
Same.
stop. It will be a mess. But we have a
Wait,
question from Twitter again. It's
ooh.
from Anna at Slytherin Reads. So she asked, do reading slumps ever impact your motivation to make videos or engage in the book community?
I watch way more BookTube when I'm in a reading slump.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, oh, if I'm not reading, I'm gonna watch somebody who I think it's a lot of that is that I am I don't know. I feel guilty for not reading, and then I just am like, I don't know. I watch a lot of BookTube anyway. I watch a lot of wrap ups for that particular reason, is because it's also I'm always constantly searching for what my next book will be, and I'm looking for recommendations from wrap ups. But I definitely don't make as much content, but I watch a lot of content.
I don't watch any content. I don't make
He knows
any content.
that.
When I'm in a reading slump. When I'm like not in a reading slump, I watch a lot of BookTube. I make a lot of videos. But yeah.
Excellent. I feel like I want to engage in the community almost more because I want to
Brag about how much you've been reading.
no, when I'm in a reading slump, Zoe.
I don't know. I saw a little smile on your face. I thought you were gonna
No.
put us in our place.
No. My goodness, what do you think of me? Oh,
What you've
dear.
shown us, that's what I think of you. I'm sorry, keep on talking.
What did I do to deserve this attack?
I'm just gonna
Insulted
disappear.
me 6 minutes in, so I just have to keep going it out.
Oh my god. I don't know. I feel like I feel guilty, I guess, for engaging in the community when I'm in a reading slump, but I
Oh.
also want to engage in the community. But I think the thing that keeps me from doing it is I know I'm gonna get the comments being like, you've talked about this book like 6 million times. And because I post so many videos, or I used to post so many videos, I'm gonna do 2 a week now. I haven't really talked about this on my channel yet, but I'm doing 2 videos a week now. But since I was doing like anywhere from 3 to 4 videos a week, I would like run out of topics and I would like run out of books to talk about. So when I was in a reading slump, that was really difficult. But
Yeah.
other than that, I don't think it really affects me that much.
I just fade away when I'm not reading. I'm like, oh, I'm not here. Read by Zoe? Nope. I can only be here when I have read something.
Amazing.
People are talking about how your relationship with reading is so healthy. I wish I had that
Mine?
healthy of a relationship in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, Hannah's.
Don't worry, it's the only healthy relationship I have.
I cannot possibly have a healthy relationship. Please.
Jackson.
That's true.
Yeah, you do have
Thank you,
Jackson.
boy. The best boy. Oh,
my
dear.
gosh.
Did we want to take a couple more questions?
Yeah.
So, you want to get one from the chat or Twitter?
I will look. Well, leave us one from Twitter. I mean, from the chat right now, and we'll pick one from Twitter.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to pick a good one, but I can't read them because I feel so much pressure.
We're all staring at you right now.
What a mood. Oh, dear. Just please think about your reading slumps in this moment.
Let's take a moment.
Meditate on it.
Reading slump. Reading unmotivation. Reading disinclination. Please retitle this live show right now.
Perfect. I'm just trying to find something that we haven't already covered, but I feel like we've covered most things. I guess we didn't really talk about, this isn't a question, but did we talk about how to avoid reading slumps?
Oh yeah. Well, there are definitely factors outside of your control, such as your mental health. Which I mean, I guess you can try to get around that by,
Well, that's
going to
something important to
therapy.
take care
Yeah,
of
that's something
before
outside of
reading
reading.
slumps.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's generally what has caused mine. And there's other things outside of your control, such as being busy with work or school, or you have a baby or something like that outside of your control. But I think that sorry, I'm just covering all the bases right now. But I think that why does everyone want to see Edward? Oh my gosh.
I don't know
He's
why
right
people keep on
there.
asking
He
about
doesn't
Edward. You
move.
know where he is. He doesn't move.
I know.
They just really want to make sure
Next time, Zoe, we don't need you here. We need Edward here.
Yeah.
Just like put him.
I will. He's the newest member of our team. But I think to avoid it, less pressure. And that's something that I need, Hailey and I both need to start doing. Hannah's fine. She's our healthy one in the group. But I think just try to don't compare and read what you're feeling in the moment. I know sometimes that people will be like, "Oh my gosh, all you do is read like erotica or something like that," and they'll try to put you down for that. But if you want to read erotica, if you want to get hot and steamy up in here, do it. Live your life. I think just listen to what you are feeling at the time. It's just
I couldn't tell if you were gonna say anything.
Me neither.
Start talking.
I can't put it into words. It's just you need to be like at peace with yourself.
The moral of the story is just like don't put pressure on yourself to read if you don't feel like reading. Like that's fine. You don't have to read. Go watch Netflix, go do whatever else you want to do, go outside, stay inside, live your life, do whatever you want, and don't feel guilty if you don't feel like reading.
It's so
fine.
easy to say, hard to follow.
Yeah.
But I think if try to keep a structure in your life. There are so many different. It all depends on the person. If you're somebody who loves structure like I do, I'm going to try and implement more structure with my reading. But if you're somebody who, once you have some structure in your life, you want to rebel against it, then
I feel attacked.
Don't set out like a TBR. I think that's something, just try and mood read. Because I think that's something that definitely happens on BookTube. Some people, again, love structure. They will stick to their TBR because they love checking off all the books. But if it's something that you want to rebel against, if it's something that you feel guilty if you haven't gotten to all the books on your TBR, just pick up what you're feeling in the moment.
Yeah.
People are more excited to see things that you're excited about.
Yeah, I haven't been in like a book related. I know I just talked about Daisy Jones, but like that's different because it was a bunch of other circumstances as well. I haven't been in like a book related reading slump in a really long time because I just read whatever I feel like reading and I stop reading what I don't like. So like it just helps a lot when you don't like force yourself to stick to these books that like you told yourself you were going to read on the first day of the month and now you haven't read any of them. Like just pick up whatever you're most excited to read. Don't put off the books that you think that you're really going to like and like save them for like next season or whatever. Just read them now. Just read what you want to read right now. And I promise it'll like really help you from getting into any of those like book related reading slumps.
For sure. Like that's made all the difference for me this year, honestly, is accepting the fact that I can't read everything and that it's okay to DNF things and not feel guilty about it. And to pick up whatever I want and not feel like, oh, I have to read this new fantasy book because like it's new. Like I can read whatever I want, whenever I want, and it doesn't matter and people won't care and I can do whatever I want. That has been very helpful this year. But I think accepting the fact that you're in a reading slump is a big thing. And it's okay to take breaks. Like you don't have to constantly be reading. You don't have to be keeping up with the new releases. You can do whatever you want.
It's a hobby.
It's
supposed to be fun. It's a form of entertainment.
Yeah.
If somebody told you to binge watch a show like every single week, that wouldn't get fun after a moment. Like, it might sound fun, but like, just because you don't do your hobbies every moment of every day because that's why they're your hobbies. So when you're in the mood to read again. And also, a thing with like reading slumps is once you've accepted that you're in a reading slump, don't think that will always be in a reading slump.
Yeah.
Because that's something as well. Some people are like, oh, I hate reading now. I will never pick up a book ever again. Like, that's some people in high school when they're doing required reading, they hate reading that book. So they think that they'll never like reading a book in general. So again, just listen to your body every day. It's different every day. Take it in stride. Don't compare yourself. These are just things to live by in general.
I feel like I'm in therapy.
I know.
Honestly.
We're having therapy hour right now.
I hate it.
It's part of reading slumps. It's just a life slump in general, usually.
Yeah, it's true. Like, if you can discover the root of your reading slump, I think that will be very helpful for both your mental health, because I think it like kind of always has something to do with it a little bit. Maybe not necessarily if it's like a certain book that put you there, but if you're just not feeling like reading and it's something that you usually love to do, consider if like you're feeling like that about other hobbies and look into ways of getting out of that, because your mental health is more important than reading, but it can be a sign of something deeper that's going on for sure.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is, "Your now is not your forever."
Yeah.
That also applies to reading slumps.
For sure. It applies to everything.
I love this. Okay, so do we want to talk about our booktuber of the week?
Yeah. So our booktuber of the week is Tabby from Keeping Tabs. So she gave us a bio and it says, I'm just your average Canadian woo, 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 book nerd with a special love for stabby books. The video I'm most proud of is my original tag, Do I Have That Book? And that's a very fun tag. I recommend you guys check it out. Yeah, Hannah and I both did it. It was really fun to do. We have her channel linked down below, so definitely go and check her out. And
Yay!
Oh, we're on my channel. Wow, I forgot. Okay, so thank you guys so much for joining us. Don't forget that for our book club, we are reading Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, and we will be having
books fight back.
Honestly, we will be having our live show at the beginning of June because we're going to be going to BookCon. So hopefully we will see some of you guys there. But our live show will be on Hannah's channel, so we will have more information about that to come. But you have plenty of time to reread the book if you wanted to, or read it for the first time. I don't know, maybe you haven't read it before. But thank you guys so much for discussing reading slumps with us. I hope that our advice was a little bit helpful if you are in a slump or if you are looking to avoid them. And just remember, read what you want, do what you want. Moral of the story.
Listen to your body.
Sure. Okay, great. All right, well, we will see you next week on Hannah's channel. Yeah, so we'll see you next week on Hannah's channel. Don't know what we're going to be doing yet, but it's going to be fun. All right, bye.